Yep, we are recording. So remember, anything you say can and will be used against you.
No F-bomb.
No F-bombs, exactly. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as advertised. We are talking today about professional courtesies. Some of them will have to do with the violation of ethics versus something being illegal. You know, sometimes it gets a little fuzzy. It's a little confusing. We don't always know what's what. So here's what I'll tell you is that the important factors are that you just kind of absorb these different professional courtesies. And Joyce, you've been in the business, well, how many years now? Are you still on mute there?
I was being courteous, see? 18 years.
18 years, wow.
Long
Yeah,
time.
so you've definitely got quite a few courtesies under your belt too. So
Yep.
feel free to pop on and share any additionals that you come up with. All right, so our number one thing is prospecting calls. You know, this is sort of an older courtesy, if you will, because the old days, as Joyce and I know from back in the time, you used to get phone calls from prospective buyers and they would just call your office. They didn't call the agent directly. It was more considered like an opportunity call or an up call, as we referred to it. So you had to understand the workings of the business to know that if somebody is calling the office, are they an opportunity for you? Are they a new opportunity, or are they someone's existing client? You know, so if for some reason somebody called the office and asked for Joyce, and I said, oh, I'm sorry, Joyce is not in, but I could help you. Am I being a nice guy?
No.
Or am I trying to poach, or am I trying to poach Joyce's purchaser or her client? Well, that's exactly what I'd be doing if I said, well, she's not in, but I'd be happy to help you. Now, I mean, let it be said, I'm also a nice guy. So, I mean, I very well could be just trying to help Joyce, but that's not typically what happened. All right.
And what should you say, Scott, if somebody...
Yeah, so if somebody does call and ask for an individual, or they get your number instead of Joyce's number, you just say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, you've reached the wrong person. Let me give you Joyce's cell phone number.
Boom.
And then that way I have not done anything other than assist Joyce's client. All right. And, you know, sometimes that happens. Like I'll get emails, I'll get voicemails, text messages. I'll get, you know, messages from people that are not meant for me. So do the courteous thing and send it to the right person.
Right.
Don't look at that as like, oh, that's an opportunity. I'm going to sneak in and grab this buyer, because it will come back and it will bite you. And Joyce has a very big bite. Let's just say that. I'm joking.
Oh, but let me say, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And other agents too. It's just, you know, but
Yeah.
you don't know what you don't know. So this is a great class.
Exactly. And these are unwritten courtesies. Nowhere in the book does it say, you know, don't try to assist potential prospects. But I guess you got to figure out, is this person calling, asking for Joyce because they saw her name on the sign? Well, if they ask for Joyce, you stop. You just direct them directly to Joyce. But if they call and they say, you know, I was calling about 123 Main Street, now they haven't said anything about Joyce.
Right.
You might know that that's her listing, but what you're trying to do is determine, is this a potential prospect for me to try to get myself, or is this someone who's specifically asking for Joyce, or is it someone who Joyce is already working with? So you've got to figure those things out.
Yep.
Okay. Now, in that scenario where if they ask for information on a particular address, but don't mention Joyce's name, it's totally appropriate for you to work with that particular prospect to try to get them as a client. Nothing wrong with that. All right. And you could follow that up by asking them, are you working with an agent? Do you have somebody you've been working with? All right. What you're trying to do in essence is qualify them. Do I want to continue trying to get them as a client? Are they a tire kicker? You know, what's the situation? All right. And then
And you know what?
naturally,
I don't know
yeah,
today, but in the old days, if someone called in based on a sign, like a sign call,
yep.
that was supposed to go to the list agent on it. I don't know
It,
if that's what we're doing today or not, but
well, it all depended on what the office policy was.
yeah, right,
Yeah. So that, I mean, today people are generally calling the listing agent directly.
right.
You know, today we use name riders or we have personalized signs.
Yeah,
So traditionally, that's the value of having a sign with your own phone number on it, is there's no call to the office. There's no loss of opportunity.
right.
And you might have a better follow-up system than the next person. So, you know, those are advantages to getting those personalized signs. All right. Or at the very least, getting signs that have name riders that they can call and ask for you directly, or they'll just call your cell phone. All
Yeah.
right. As far as the ready, willing, and able, what you're trying to figure out is, are you a ready, willing, and able buyer? Are you ready to get out there and start looking at property? Are you willing to put pen to paper when you see a house that you like? And are you able to actually perform on that offer itself? Are you pre-approved? If you're not pre-approved, then you're not an able buyer. In essence, you're a ready and willing buyer, but you don't have that third very important criteria. So don't be one of those agents that says, well, that's okay, I'll show you the property anyway, because that is actually not a good idea. Why? If you were to read the listing agreement, it actually says in there that we promise to only show the property to ready, willing, and able buyers. Because if you think about it, if you were a seller, right? Let's say, Teresa, you were selling your home, and I called and said, I want to set up a showing appointment at 4 o'clock. Well, you're going to spend probably an hour, if not two, cleaning the house, getting it ready, figuring out who's going to take the kids. What am I going to do with the dog? Grandma's in her in-law apartment. Where's she going to go? So you've got a lot of moving pieces that you got to figure out, all to accommodate my request of a 4 o'clock showing. But now you get out of the house and I come and I bring my buyer, and then later on you find out that they're not even pre-approved. Like, you don't know if they can afford a tin can or what, you know? So the problem is, it's really not very ethical to show somebody a property that we don't know that they have the ability to actually afford to buy. All right. When it comes to showing the property, you're going to get people request showings and they're actually not the buyer. I'm sure, Joyce, this has happened to you because it happened to me a lot. Mom and dad, you know, they know that Sally, their youngest daughter's out looking in the market, and naturally they're online looking for homes too. And they may call up an agent and say, oh, I'd like to see this property. They pretend to be the buyer. And then later on, you might find out they're really not the buyer, it's their daughter. And their daughter really is probably annoyed that mom and dad are even involved in their business, you know, as naturally many people would be. But you've got to figure out, am I working with the legitimate buyer? Is this the buyer, or is this somebody who's pretending to be one or acting on someone else's behalf? We're not allowed to show property to non-ready, willing, and able buyers. That's what we're required to do. So we have to make sure that we stay true to that. Joyce, have you ever had that situation, and how'd you handle it?
I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten to the point where I've actually met people at the property and found that they were the parents. I have had them tell me, because I usually ask a lot of questions, right? Particularly during COVID. And I had
Yeah,
that happen where they were looking for their daughter. And I'm like, is your daughter with you? Like, and so you just got to learn
yeah.
to ask the questions. But yeah, I've never had that happen. I guess that's a surprise because it's been years. I've never had that happen. You just got to do a really good job of qualifying. You
Yeah,
really do.
yeah. And maybe that's why it hasn't happened to you, because you did a better job qualifying them, so
Maybe, maybe.
that really is what's important, is making sure that, are you going to spend your time with these people? Are they worth your time?
Yeah.
If
What I
you could,
have done is I've gotten better with the pre-approval because in my early days, I was just so excited to
yeah,
take people out and honestly, it's so much better when you get that out of the way right up front when you ask for, are you pre-approved? Because
right,
it makes so much sense. Why would you start looking if you don't even know what you're qualified for? You know?
exactly. I mean, not only do you not know how much you qualify for, but what about the loan type? If you're an FHA or a VA buyer, and you want to go look at a property that has chipping and peeling paint throughout the entire outside of it, well, that's that's a game stopper. That's a problem we're going to have to overcome. So, knowing that the buyer is pre-approved, how much for, what type of loan program. Some buyers need closing costs to be included in their purchase as well, because they don't have enough money saved up, or whatever the case might be. So you sort of have to understand all of the different layers. And when somebody does say, yes, I'm pre-approved, just say, oh, that's wonderful. Who are you pre-approved with?
100%.
And the reason why is because they lie. Buyers lie. They do. I remember my old instructor
Buyer's a
years
liar.
ago. Yeah, my old instructor used to say, buyers are liars and they take you on tours. That's all they do. And we used to have to drive them around in our
Right.
car.
Right.
Now, thankfully, we don't do that anymore, at least very little anyway. Okay, as far as soliciting listings and buyers within Keller Williams, obviously that's a no-no. You don't want to be going and trying to solicit listings that are active anyway. If you have an active listing, you do not want to try to solicit them. But when you're working with someone who's maybe you have a Keller Williams Evolution expired listing, I think this is something that you have to kind of tread lightly. I don't know, Joyce, what your thoughts on this, but this, technically, if it's an expired listing, you all have the opportunity to go after it.
Yeah.
All right. There's nothing wrong with it, nothing illegal, nothing
Yeah.
unethical, perfectly fine.
Yep.
That being said, I do feel like, you have to kind of look at the whole picture.
I still
Like,
would say, you know what, if it, whoever it is, Keller Williams agent, not Keller Williams agent,
yeah,
they're there for the taking.
they're there. They are there for the taking, and there's nothing wrong with it. I guess for me,
Just
hey,
don't badmouth any agent, whether they're Keller
yeah,
Williams or
yeah,
not.
yeah. Oh, well, exactly. If you end up calling on a particular listing, you know what? We're all different people. We all have different backgrounds. We have, different techniques for getting things done. Why don't I come over and share with you what I do, and you tell me whether this is a match or not.
Right.
But
Sometimes it's good to be the second agent or the third agent.
well, as you said, Joyce, you never want to badmouth or talk
Right.
down about somebody. You never want to say, well, Teresa, she didn't get it done because she's brand new. I mean, you should have just called me out of the gate.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You never want to do anything like that. That's just very disrespectful.
And don't do it on a listing presentation, ever.
Yeah, at any point. Exactly. Oh, I was talking with this agent and she said this, and I thought, wow, what a jerk, or I didn't like her. I'm sorry, unfortunately we don't get along with everybody, but that's okay. That's why
Yeah.
you've met me,
Right.
just try to change the subject and
Or
get
I'm
off.
also talking to so-and-so, and you go, well, they're horrible because.
Yeah. Well, this is another thing, stepping on people's toes. You never want to, like Joyce is saying, you never want to make someone sound like they're less superior than you are.
Right.
You got to be careful by saying, well, they're a part-time, or I can better serve you. I have more years of experience. Um, or, they're a discount broker.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
you
they're
just
not
gotta,
local, or
yeah,
I've had
yeah,
people tell me they didn't pick the other agent because they were bad mouthing the
right,
competition.
right.
So,
Oh, they don't know the area. They just moved here last month. You know,
yeah,
you just stay away. Don't talk about others. Talk about yourself.
yeah,
That's really the key. So soliciting current listings, if you're going to do any sort of farming or mailings, you always want to have a little disclaimer at the bottom of your letter or on your postcard that says that if the property is currently listed for sale, this is not considered to be a solicitation.
right.
And the reason why is because we're not allowed to solicit active listings. Okay. So you want to make sure that your disclaimers, but you don't want to specifically send it to only active listings. Some people will have the disclaimer and they'll specifically target just active listings thinking, well, if they're not happy with their agent, they'll call me. That's not a good idea. All right. What's the point of putting a disclaimer if you're specifically targeting people who are actively listed? All right. So you've got to be very careful about what you're doing. If you're broadcasting, you're sending out 100 letters to a neighborhood, put that disclaimer on there. Obviously, you're not going to look up 100 addresses and see if any of them are actively listed. Just make sure you do a little CYA by putting that on the bottom. And don't put it in a tiny print either. Make sure it's readily visible for them to read and see that you're not actively trying to solicit them, knowing that they're under contract. Covering vacation, sick time. Again, this can be a company specific, but most companies for the majority will say, what, agents are responsible for running their own businesses. Joyce, if you go on vacation, I'm happy to cover you and your clients while you're gone. And hey, you know what? When I go away, will you do the same for me? And it's favor for favor. There's no money exchanged.
Right.
Or I could say, you know what, Joyce, I'll pay you, X amount of dollars an hour to take care of my business while I'm away. Neither is inappropriate. It's just what works for you and the covering agent.
Right.
Okay. I prefer, naturally, to not have the let me pay you per hour, but
Right.
let me scratch your back, you scratch mine.
Yep.
And you know what? Joyce might be busier than I am. Well, so what?
So what is right?
So what? There's going to
But
be
we do
times.
that now. It's the best way to do it. Then
Yeah,
you're covered and
yeah,
and I'm covering for someone now. I just did a home inspection yesterday.
yep.
And yeah,
This is whatever, what comes around goes around, right? Or
100%.
what goes around comes around. Like,
Yeah,
both
100%.
both ways, both ways. All right, so let's move on and talk about co-broke fees. What you're going to see, if you haven't already seen this in the industry, is that for the most part, agents are fair with one another. All right. But sometimes you'll encounter an agent who may decide, you know what, I'm not going to give a 50-50 split of my compensation. I'm going to keep a little extra. And you could argue, back and forth, is that the right thing to do? Is it the wrong thing to do? It's not illegal. There's nothing wrong with doing it. But treat others as you wish to be treated yourself. Be fair. Remember that you're in an industry that, while it's a very large industry, it's really not as large as you might think. You're going to encounter Teresa, Joyce, Shaylin, Anne Marie. We're gonna run into each other all the time. So I don't
All the
want
time.
to, yeah. So I don't want to treat Joyce badly and have her, feeling like I was not fair by compensating her less than 50-50. Now, that's the common courtesy, is a 50-50 split. Again, is it illegal or unethical not to do that? No, it's perfectly fine. What I would recommend, though, is a fair 50-50 split. It's just the right thing to do. That being said, there may be circumstances that do come up where you have to make a difficult decision. And let me give you one example. If you have a property that you're going to be listing for sale, but it's a corporate relo, well, that relocation company oftentimes charges a referral fee. All right. I used to be in that business myself and charge that referral fee on many occasions. The reason for that referral fee is it offsets the corporation's costs in moving that particular transferee. So it's a required cost. The homeowner does not have a choice. Anybody who they elect to go with is going to be required to pay that referral fee. That's a standard that you see today. Well, in that situation, the agent's either going to charge a higher commission rate, or they're going to charge their normal commission rate, but now they're going to have to pay a referral fee. In those situations, you may see where it's not a 50-50 split. You may see an agent say, we have to pay a referral fee off the top. So naturally, they don't want to make less money than you are. They want it to be fair. All right. So just keep that in mind. Now, another thing, just to kind of talk about commissions a little further, we have the right to negotiate our commission rate with the other side.
Yep.
All right. If I see that Joyce is offering a percentage rate that's not acceptable to me, that I feel like it's too low, I can call Joyce, slap her around a little bit and say, girl, what are you doing? Why are you doing this so cheap? I want to be paid more. And I can fight with her. I can argue. I can take her out, try to get her drunk. Whatever the method is. But my purpose is by saying what you offer in the MLS is what we've agreed to offer out.
Right.
But if I feel that Joyce is not paying what I think I'm worth, I could call Joyce and ask her if she will consider changing that commission.
Right.
All right.
Which I've had happen.
Joyce could say no.
Which I have.
Yeah, go pound sand. I'm not giving you any more
You
money.
stink. No, I'm only kidding.
That's right. But so those are things that you might encounter when you're out there. And at the end of the day, when you sit down with your buyer, this is the value of having an exclusive buyer agency agreement, is you're already setting the expectation up front with your buyer client. You're saying to them, this is my minimum success fee. All right. Anything that I get over that, wonderful, but I'm not willing to work for less than that. So if Joyce has a listing and she's offering less than my minimum success fee, well, Mr. Buyer, you're going to have to make up that difference. Now, I'm going to make every effort possible to try to get Joyce to reconsider and pay me that minimum fee. But if I'm not successful in doing so, you're going to have to make up that difference. All right. Joyce, any additional thoughts on that? Would you
Well,
recommend?
so I have referral fees when my clients with Brooksby Village, right?
Yep.
But I also have started to, and it's probably not, I don't know if it's cool or not, but when I do 5% listings, I keep 3 and offer out 2, but many times I will split it because the co-broke's excellent. And I hate to admit it, but that's what I've done. But
So
certainly
you base it,
Brooksby,
off of the experience.
Yeah, and maybe it's not cool, but that's what I've done.
Well, I mean, whether you want to be cool or not, I guess is the question.
Well, I just want to be, fair, obviously.
Yeah.
List agents typically spend more money because they're doing the photography, they're doing marketing and so forth. So in the old days, that was acceptable. But
It's
I
still
often
acceptable.
split it, even if it's, I split most all of them. I can't remember in the last year if I haven't.
But you're sort of giving yourself an opportunity not to, if your dealings are not as pleasant as you wish.
I had an agent, a Keller Williams agent, tell me that's not cool.
Well, again, it all comes down to, is it illegal? Is it unethical? No, it's perfectly fine.
And I had another agent or broker that said, no matter what, it's none of your business what the commission is.
Right.
Certainly you can ask, and I've had people ask, but it's really none of our business as buyer agents. And if we want more than what's offered in MLS, certainly you can ask the other agent.
Yep.
But you should definitely, and I'm not good with this. I usually just take what's offered in MLS. I
I mean,
haven't mastered that yet.
well, I think it all comes down to, your clients. You have to make that decision. Like you said, do I try to negotiate for more? Do I not? Do you use exclusive buyer agency agreements?
Yeah, but
You
I'm
do.
I'm much more on the list side than I am on the buyer side.
Okay. All
And
right.
I haven't done the extra or even tried to get more than 2% because I feel
Yep.
like these buyers are paying crazy numbers, to get the property. I don't
Yep.
know.
Yeah. I mean, we all run our business how we see fit.
Well, I still don't like it because it makes a big difference if you look at all your buyers in the course of even a year and you
Yeah.
do a 2% as opposed to a 2.5, and there's a lot of money there on the table that
A
we're
lot.
leaving.
Yeah. Yeah. Things
So
to
there's
think about.
always room for improvement. That's one of them. That's one for
Yeah.
me that I want to do.
Well, one of the agents that used to work for me, she would always charge the company's minimum fee. She would never ask for more. And I said to her, I said, Stephanie, you're never going to make more money in this business because you don't feel your value is there.
Right.
You can't just charge more because you think you want more. You have to be able to support the value. But, even after 15 years of being in the business, she still always charged the minimum. She never fought. She never fought for more money, and she never got paid more money, where I would try to say to her, look, you're never going to get more if you don't ask for more. And I used to get more than she used to get all the time because I was always able to ask for it. I was able to support my value. I was able to show the consumer that there is a difference, in agents. Not disparaging anybody,
Right.
more showing them how well educated you are and how well versed you are in the industry is really the key. All right. All right, so let's talk about code of ethics, illegal versus unethical. Um, all of you are required to take your code of ethics every 3 years now. Used to be 2 years. So the triennial renewal period, in case you didn't know, is this December 31st. So if you've not already taken your code of ethics training, make sure that you do that before the end of the year. The new people, if you haven't already done your orientation and your code of ethics training, you'll want to do that because you want to make sure that you satisfy NAR's requirements. Okay. The term buying the listing, this is a term I'm sure Joyce is familiar with, but for the rest of you, what it really means is that you're saying a number just to get the listing. If I said to Joyce, what's it going to take for me to get this listing? And she says, $1 million. All right, I'll agree to $1 million. The problem is that if I don't tell Joyce what I think the house is really worth, now I've potentially violated Chapter 93A, consumer protection. And the reason why is because I've deceived Joyce into thinking her house is really worth $1 million when I know it's only worth $850,000. All right. So you've got to be really careful. If I said to Joyce, you know what, your house is worth $850,000, but I'll try $1 million. Nothing wrong with that. All right. Nothing
I
wrong
use
with
that
it.
in my listing presentation because if they have a outrageous number,
Yeah.
and they're like, well, Zillow says it's worth $1 million.
Right.
And I tell them that,
Zillow's a computer.
right. I said, they don't have the algorithms,
Yeah.
to accurately assess individual properties, right? And I said, it's actually illegal for agents to inflate a listing price just to get the listing, something I will never do.
Right.
And they're like, oh, but I don't get why Zillow can do it. I still don't get that.
I think the thing with Zillow is it's considered to be, I think if you read all their fine print, they'll say in there it's not an exact science, it is an algorithm. And I could go in and modify your house, Joyce. I could say you've got 19 bedrooms and 16 bathrooms and 200,000 square foot of living, and their database there's
Right,
no parameters. I could go in and do that with anybody's listing. How accurate is your value if anybody can go in there and tweak these
right,
things? Or the consumer goes in themselves and tweaks their own property. Well, they don't know what they're able to include or not include. So, I just say, I don't even look at Zillow. Well, what about my assessed value? I don't even look at that either.
right,
All the assessed value is how much you're going to get taxed on. Has no relevance on your fair market value.
right,
In fact, if I show you fair market value of properties that have sold and we compare it to the assessed value, you're going to see that the assessed value is often much lower than the actual
right.
value. So you should be happy that we're not looking at that value, right? So anyway, not to get off subject, but you've got to make sure that you don't deceive the client just to get the listing. You need to be truthful, and you need to say, hey, I think this is what it's worth, and here's my supporting backup documentation. Pocket listings is another term, and there's two ways to handle a pocket listing. One way is legal, another way is illegal. So a pocket listing, for those that don't know, is when you get a listing and you literally put it in your pocket and don't tell anybody. All right. When you do it illegally, it's because the seller has no knowledge that you're not putting the property on the MLS and you're not making it available for the world to see. That's the illegal part. What would be legal is if the seller gave you specifically an exclusive for a period of time. Maybe the agent and the seller know each other and they're great friends. Maybe I say to you, hey, look, it's a great market. I could probably sell this myself. Can you give me 5 days exclusive on this property so that I don't have to put in the MLS and I don't have to tell the rest of the world? Let me see if I can sell it to my own buyers. If Ong gives me written permission to do that and we get the proper document signed, it's not illegal because he's authorized me to do it. What happens mostly, though, is the illegal side, where agents just put it in their pocket without the seller's consent. All right, so you've got to be really careful there and make sure that if for some reason you're going to try that, that you make sure that the seller is aware, they give you permission, and that you explain them the pros and the cons. All right, if I'm the only broker that can sell your property within the next 5 days, what are the chances of you getting 15 multiple offers? Very low. Because I don't think I have 15 buyers that are going to all make offers, right? So that's a con. But what's the advantage? Well, if I sell it myself, I'm managing the entire transaction. Maybe the seller says, well, I don't really care whether you're doing it all yourself or whether there's another agent. Okay, so you got to explain those things to the seller, make sure they're fully aware, and then see what they agree to do. All right, so just be careful. You can take something like that and simply doing it wrong will make it illegal. Antitrust. So this is something we have to be careful with. We don't have to worry so much about monopolies, only because there's plenty of real estate companies out there. I don't see any company that's monopolizing the industry and preventing the consumer from getting a fair price. But steering is something we have to worry about. Group boycotting, definitely something we have to worry about. And price fixing. So let me kind of chat with you about each of those. So steering back in the 50s and 60s was different than steering is today. Back in the early 50s, 60s, what they were doing is they were putting protected classes on specific floors in an apartment building. So that's how they steered people, or they'd specifically steer them away from a particular area or town that they didn't want that particular protected class to be part of.
That's how we got the North End and Southie and everything else, right?
Yeah. I mean, you got Quincy, you've got Chinatown, like you said,
Yeah.
North End, South End. Um,
But
those
that's
are,
how it started, isn't that
that's how,
crazy?
that's how it started. Yeah. And to be honest with you, one of the things that you have to be careful about is showing the buyer what you think they want versus what they actually told you they wanted. All right. So you've got to be better listener today and not assume things. We all know what happens when you assume, right?
Yeah.
So steering today it's a different look. If I know that, Teresa has a child that has special needs because she shared that with me, and I specifically steer her to a particular neighborhood because I know there's a couple other kids there that have the same, or I steer her to a school district that has special needs. I could look at that and say, I'm doing her a favor, right? I mean, she should be thanking me. Well, the reality is I'm still breaking the law because I've steered her into an area that she may not want. She, yes, there's benefit to it, but maybe she doesn't want that. I never tell a buyer, I don't pick listings to show buyers. I
Right.
send them everything and then they tell me which ones they want to go see. All right. If a buyer says, I don't want to be in this town, well, then you just delete the town. But if you do it yourself, if you select or deselect a particular town on your own, you're steering. All right. Same thing with school districts. Oh, I want a good school district. Well, what's a good district to you might not be the same to me. So if I steer you into a particular direction, I've taken your choices away from you. So don't do that. All right. Be the source of the source. If you've ever taken my classes in the past, you've heard me say that. Be the source of the source. You have to CYA. All right. One of my good friends, he's Polish, and his dad called me one day and said, "Hey, Scott, I want to sell the house." I said, "John, no problem. Where are you going to go?" He says, "I want to go and live with my people." "You going to Poland?" "No, no, no. I want to live in a Polish community in Massachusetts." I said, "John, I don't know where there's a Polish community. It's not like there's a directory and I can go look it up. So he says, "No, no, no. You know what you're doing. You know where people live, and kind of like the whole South End, North End type thing." I said, "John, I honestly don't. And if I did, I still couldn't direct you to those neighborhoods. Now you can tell me I want to live in this neighborhood, that neighborhood, or this area because you're telling me where you want to live. But if you ask me to just go direct you, I can't." All right. So you've got to be careful there. Group boycotting, big issue. You wouldn't think so, but it happens. It's even happening within our realtor community. Group boycotting is when two or more businesses conspire against another. Right now, I won't get into detail, but right now there's a huge debate on the South Shore. I'm a realtor member on the South Shore. They're talking about going into these super lock boxes. I don't know, Joyce, do they have super lock boxes in the North Shore?
Yeah, don't laugh. I just had to deal with one in Peabody. I'm like,
Uh,
what?
So, so Supra is a type of lockbox company. It's an electronic lockbox.
Yeah.
Years ago, probably 10, 15, maybe even longer, years ago, they tried and it failed miserably and it ended up going away. And we go back to the combination,
Yeah.
the push button boxes. Well, now Supra has resurfaced. I think they've been around anyway, but they've resurfaced on the South Shore. And there's a lot of debate going on right now between the realtors. And it's actually happening on our realtor platform, which is even worse. I mean, the idea itself is bad, never mind on a
I know.
platform. And there's agents trying to convince each other not to do business with Supra. What are they doing?
Boycotting.
They're potentially group boycotting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to be careful not to do these things. And I'm not saying that they are group boycotting, because some of them have different language, some use different words. But you've got to be careful because you're opening yourself up for risk. Okay. The old saying goes, you can choose not to do business with a company on your own, but the moment you try to convince another company not to do business, now you're playing with fire. Okay. Price fixing, the only time you can talk about commission rates is when you're within the same company. You go outside of that company, you can't talk about commission rates. All right. You got to be
What do
really
you mean?
careful.
What do you mean about that? What do you?
So when you're at a company and your company says, this is our standard rates, we charge these commission rates. We all work for the same company, so it's okay for us to talk and understand what our company minimums are. But if I'm trying to recruit another agent from another company and I start talking commission rates and what our company does, now we're price fixing. Now we're potentially engaging in an unfair or deceptive practice, which would be possibly fixing our prices. If I'm trying to get Joyce to come to my own company and we're talking about, well, this is what we charge. Well, Joyce might come, she might not come. And she might also change her commission rates because she now has heard what we're charging. Joyce doesn't even have to agree to do that. Just by being a participant in that conversation and somebody overhears it, they could report you as potentially violating price fixing. All right. So when you're within the same company, it's okay because we all work for the same owner. The only time it's acceptable is if you're interviewing at a new company, and obviously you need to know what the interviewing manager says is your company's policy. That's the only time it's appropriate for an agent to say, what is your policy? All right. You got to be really careful though. You don't want someone to accuse you of doing something that was illegal, especially antitrust laws, because the financial impact is huge. You know, the damages you're going to be paying for the rest of your life just to pay off those fines.
Oh boy.
Never mind whether you get, sued for treble damages or whether you even get arrested, depending on what the situation was. Allocating customers and markets would be me saying, hey, Joyce, I'm from the South Shore, you're from the North Shore. You get the North Shore, I get the South Shore. All right. Don't even think about coming to my neighborhood. All right. It would almost be kind of like the Cape. Don't even come over that bridge. You come over the bridge, we're going to have problems.
Because that happens. No, my God.
Well, it's I'll tell you, let's not go there. There's definitely different treatment, some have argued. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but there's definitely different treatment.
But that would be acceptable for like an expansion team where they're discussing and interviewing within, it would be within the company anyway, so.
As long as
You know
it's
what I mean?
as long as it's within the company,
Yeah,
we can talk commission rates. But anybody outside, when you go to a continuing education class, you're going to have agents from all different types of companies. This is where it happens most often, is you see someone will raise their hand, they'll share a story, and inevitably they come up with a commission percentage. I don't know why, but they do. Now you've got 15 other agents from all these different companies hearing what you charge. By continuing the conversation or allowing it to go on, you could be participating in price fixing. All right. So you've got to be even more careful when you go to these other events that are not company specific.
okay.
All right. Tie-in agreements, when you make one agreement subject to another. I'll only list your property if you buy with me also. Now you can say, I'll give you a discount if you buy and sell with me, because that's just giving them an advantage if they do both, but you're not requiring both. All right, so there is a difference. All right, if I'm only willing to sell your house because you're going to buy with me, well, then that's considered to be a tie-in agreement. Okay.
Yep.
All right, showings and open house courtesies. This is an interesting one, especially because I've had a couple of scenarios and events that I'll share with you, but you always want to make sure anytime possible, you accompany your buyers for open houses. A, it's more professional. B, you want to be there to point out things that the buyer may not see on their own, right? And C, if there's specific questions, you want to be the one asking the other agent. You don't want your clients necessarily doing that. But do you have to be present? No. Nobody owns a buyer at an open house. An open house is just that. It's a public offering where anybody can come and look at the house. All right. If somebody says to you, well, if your agent's not here, you have to buy the property through me, chuckle and then call your agent and say, nice try, but that's not how it works. You don't have procuring cause over buyers that walk through the threshold of that home without their agents just because you want there to be. But there are some agents out there that will try that. So, it's a good idea to sit down with your clients and say, if anybody ever says this, first thing you should do is call me. Second thing is, it doesn't say this on the screen, but give your buyer clients a stack of your business cards. Right? If they're out driving around and they see an open house sign and you're not available, or they just want to swing in because they just drove by it, that's fine. But the first thing they should do is walk into the open house, go find the agent that's conducting the open house, and hand them your business card. Oh, this is my agent. And if they ask you to sign in, use my name, use my cell phone number. Why? Well, because if you don't, the agent at the open house is probably going to start contacting you. All right. Oh, that's a good hint. Thanks for telling me that. Buyers are like, that's gold, because when you think about it, we're doing open houses. Yes, we hope to sell the property, but most of the time we're looking for more business. We're looking for potential buyers and sellers. All right. Anything you would add to that on, Joyce?
Yeah, I would say if you're working an open house, you should always ask, are you currently working with another agent? It's okay if you are, just want to make sure I get their information, because buyers are liars. They think you won't let them in, and then you cause a big ruckus, right? Believe
Right.
me. So, treat people the way you want to be treated. Run your open house the way you would want others to run theirs with your clients, right? So
Yeah.
don't make them all standoffish and not tell you if they are, right?
Yeah, that's a great point too. And common courtesy. If you're running late for an appointment, you call them. Hey, I'm running late.
Yeah.
When you make appointments, that's the hard thing. When you're making an appointment for 8 showings in one day, some houses are going to go really quick because they don't like it. And then other houses, it's going to take a long time because they really do like it.
Yeah.
So when you set up your appointments, there's going to be some overlap.
Yeah.
And I try to do a 1 hour time frame, and then I overlap the next one on top of each other.
Yeah.
And that typically works pretty well for me. But there's occasions when I'm running early or I'm running late. So pick up the phone and say, hey, we're running late. I just want to give you a courtesy call. That's going to go so far. The agent's like, you know what? Thanks so much.
Yep.
Because nobody does that. They're just rude. And, that's not what our profession is. I shouldn't say nobody does that, because I do it.
I
I'm
do
sure
it.
Joyce does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's
I
a
don't mean to
crazy
say
day
nobody
too,
does.
but we all have texts now, so we can
Yeah.
really,
Right.
let them know.
Yep.
Because I'm pissed if somebody doesn't call me.
Yeah. Well, your seller's been waiting for someone to pull up, and now it's a half hour later. Now they're calling you upset because
Yeah.
the buyer's late and they didn't tell you. So that goes a long way, guys. It really does. All right. So if you're going to send a buyer to an open house, it's good common courtesy to notify that agent. hey, Joyce, I'm gonna send over my buyer. His name is great guy, you know, just wanted to, give you a courtesy call and let you know that he'll be stopping by. Again, it goes a long way, a long, long way. If for some reason you can't make a showing, I've actually had this happen too, where I've been tied up, I'm out showing property to another buyer, but this house just came on the market. The window for showings is like 2 to 5 and I'm already booked, but I don't want my client to miss out. So sometimes I'll call up the agent and say, hey, Joyce, great new listing. I really wish I could show it. My clients are biting at the bit to get in there. Any chance that, I could send them and you could show it to them as a professional courtesy? Most agents are going to say, that's fine. I've been in that same boat myself. And yeah, I'm happy to help you. Yeah, of course, you're going to get the reverse. Some people will be like, hey, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. I'm busy too. Um, what does it come down to? Just try to help other people, because if you ever need the help, they'll help you back,
Mhm.
So anytime anyone's ever said that to me, you know what? I've been in that same boat before. I'm happy to accommodate you. And then you don't try to poach their buyer.
Right.
You're doing a courtesy showing, right? Yeah, I'll help you.
I've seen
Over.
people lately, the agents are trying to poach the people right at the open house, like agents that are not the list agent. They,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
They attend the
yeah.
open house and they're out there trying to get these
So,
buyers.
so I had this situation at an open house. I was conducting my open house. It was going well. Plenty of people were coming in. I had brochures like you're supposed to, of course. And I handed out the brochure. Every single person that came in got a brochure. But I was noticing everybody was holding a different brochure in their hand than what I gave them. That's not what I gave them. Why are they holding a different brochure? But it was everybody that was coming down the stairs from being up on the second floor. So I said, where are you guys getting these other brochures? Oh, there's a guy upstairs handing them out. Are you serious? Oh yeah, no, there's a guy upstairs. He was telling us about a property that's down the street that he has listed for sale, and he gave everybody a brochure. I'm like, I cannot believe this is even happening. So I marched right up the stairs and I said, look, buddy, you're leaving one of two ways: on your own accord or on the bottom of my foot. You choose, but you got 3 seconds to make your decision. I was like appalled that this guy was literally doing what he was doing.
Right? I was at an open house last weekend. I had my badge on. I was meeting my clients, and everybody, I can't even tell you how many people were coming through asking me questions. I'm like, I'm not the agent. He's over there. He doesn't have a badge on, but he's the agent.
Yeah, you just got to be careful. I remember I've actually shown property where I'm there with my clients and another buyer shows up without a broker. Hey, can you take me in? Are you an agent? Yeah, I'm an agent, but I'm not your agent,
Right.
you know? And I may say to them, well, do you have an agent? Now I'm qualifying them on the doorstep.
Yeah.
And if they don't have an agent and they're pre-approved and, they qualify based on my criteria, as long as I'm not taking my current client to another property, then I may very well, show them the property. But what would make sense in that situation would be to call the listing agent. Hey, we just had somebody pop in while I was showing the property. I'm going to be here another hour. Please let the seller know. I mean, if it's a vacant property, then you're fine probably. But if it's an occupied property, you want to make sure that it's okay for you to be there for that extended period of time.
I've
All right.
also had people, believe it or not, the agent gives the buyer the combo. It
Yes,
doesn't
we're going to
go.
talk about that.
Mm,
Bad. No,
never.
that's a really bad idea. Really bad idea. All right. Never, exactly, never, ever do that. We are actually seeing this problem get worse. You've got agents that are servicing a large area. Maybe they can't make it from one, the North Shore to the South Shore, or out in the Worcester County. They can't make it to all these locations. So they'll often just make the appointment, and then they'll give the buyer the lockbox information, and the buyer lets themselves in. Worst idea ever. All right. That's not how this business works.
Right.
And you can get yourselves in a lot of trouble, especially if anything's ever gone or lifted or stolen or damaged,
Yep.
or God forbid somebody gets hurt
Yep.
on the property. You're opening yourself up to a can of worms that you just don't want to be dealing with. All right. And if you ever encounter that problem, then I would make sure that you report it. All right. Because that's sometimes the only way you're going to get it to stop. But great. Thanks for bringing that up, Joyce. That was right on here for me to chat about. Same thing with alarm codes. If anybody ever gives you an alarm code, or says we buried the key under the rock, or it's under the doormat, make sure that the buyer doesn't see that. I always bring two MLS sheets. I bring one for me to give to the buyer, and I bring my own, which has my instructions on there. So just make sure that you're protecting that property as if it were your own property. You want to leave a business card on the counter. Okay. The reason why this is a good idea is it says to the seller, I was here. All right. I made an appointment and I showed up. A lot of sellers complain and they say, you know what? We don't even know if the person was here or not. Why don't they know? Well, because the agent never left a business card. Right. So just, be thoughtful in that sense. Any lights or doors, make sure that they're turned off. Make sure the doors are all locked. Go around after you're showing and make sure that everything is in order. If the buyer is one of those people that likes to check windows to see if they work, we'll go and look and make sure that those windows are closed and that they're properly locked. All right. Not only do you want to protect the homeowner, B, you also want to make sure that the homeowner is not put in jeopardy if you ever encounter somebody who has bad intentions of going back when they shouldn't be doing that. All right. You will also encounter properties where you pull up and everything's turned on. If that's the case, if you pull up and everything's turned on, leave the house as you found it, because they might have 2 or 3 showings right behind you. All right. But if you are there and you turn on the light switches, turn them off. All right. You really have to protect the property that you're showing. Accommodate seller requests. Sometimes you'll walk into homes where the seller wants you to remove your shoes. They might want you to put booties on. When we had COVID as a big issue, you absolutely were doing that. Sometimes you had to put booties on your booties. You had to have your hand sanitizer, your mask, you had to put on your spacesuit with your ventilator. Some of these showings were pretty crazy. That's not happening so much today, granted, with all this stuff going on, and they're talking about having to put masks back on. Who knows what's around the corner, but you may very well get cultural beliefs, where you walk in and they want you to remove your shoes at the front door because that's their cultural belief. That's something that they want you to respect and honor. Absolutely, every single time you do as the homeowner asks. And if you're not willing to do it, don't go in the house, because it's their home. You should respect their home and you should respect their courtesies. Some homeowners will leave a note on the door that says, hey, can you text me or call me when you're done? Do it. It's a common courtesy. They might be walking the dog around the block 15 times while you're out showing the property. They just want to know, when can I come home? Or maybe they go buy ice cream for the kids, or they go out to dinner, whatever. Just be courteous and you'll be fine. All right. All right, anybody got any questions? I know I've been chatting a lot and I want to make sure I give you guys opportunities to ask questions. No? I guess we're doing that good of a job. Okay, respect for the public. I want to point out some of these you've already probably seen. These are pathways to professionalism, part of the code of ethics class. At least when I teach it, I always introduce pathways to professionalism, which is they're not ethical standards. They're not articles and they're not specific standards. They're more common courtesies. So follow the golden rule. Treat others how you wish to be treated yourself. Okay. Again, a lot of this is common sense. Respond promptly to inquiries. Somebody calls you about a property, don't wait a week to get back to them. I mean, chances are if you do that, you're never going to have any customers or clients. Schedule appointments and showings as much in advance as possible. Nothing worse than being a seller and someone says, I'm driving up right now. Can I show your property? No. I'm in the middle of stuff. I've got dinner on the table, dishes in the sink. I don't even know where my kids are. You know, be courteous. A lot of this stuff is common sense stuff. If a prospective buyer decides not to view an occupied home, explain the situation to the listing broker or the occupant. Go up to the front door, knock on the door. If somebody comes, just say, hey, I'm sorry. You know, the buyers have decided not to view the property. You know, I apologize, but I just wanted you to know. Don't just drive away. All right. You might be embarrassed and the person that's in the house might be a little upset at you. But the last thing I want to do, Mr. Homeowner, is waste your time showing the property to someone who we know that they have no interest in buying it. But I didn't want to just drive away. I wanted to give you that common courtesy. Okay. Communicate on a timely fashion. When you enter the property, ensure the expected situations. Pets. Sometimes you'll see on an MLS listing sheet, don't let the dogs out. Don't let the cats out. I was never told about a cat at a property. I never had no clue that they had a cat. The only time I knew is when I opened the door and there was a note on the wall. It said, don't let the cat out. Well, guess what had just scurried through the bottom of my two legs? The cat. Do you know how hard it is to get a freaking cat that doesn't want to go back into the house? It took me an hour to get this cat back into the house. Oh, and don't worry, I had plenty of war wounds to
Right.
you know, that cat scratched the heck out of me, but I got him. And he was put back in that house. The buyer was laughing, you know, they felt bad. They tried to help me. Not a good thing, you know, not a good thing. All right, so be careful with what's going on. One thing I thought I would share with you was a funny story that I encountered in going into an open house. I'm sorry, it was not an open house, it was a private showing. It was one of my best friends. I was taking him into a condo and we saw the first floor and the second floor before we went to the basement. Well, when we went up to the second floor, I noticed that above the master bedroom, on the wall above the bed, was a portrait of a naked woman. And I happened to notice, because I like when I see pictures, I look at the people in the pictures. And I happened to notice that the woman in the picture was the naked portrait. And I thought, wow, that's abrasive. I can't believe the listing agent didn't advise their seller to take down the naked portrait of the wife. But we see all kinds of things in this business, right? So we laughed about it, chuckled. My poor buyer had to cover their kids' eyes. So we proceeded eventually to get down to the basement, and we got even a bigger surprise. The homeowner's daughter apparently didn't get the message that we were showing the property, and she and her boyfriend were having sex.
Oh my God.
Now you'd think that most people would be like, oh my God, and they'd stop. Nope, this woman did
Oh.
not stop at all. She just looked back and said, make sure you lock up when you leave. And just kept going like nothing had even occurred. I honestly to God think that was probably the worst or the best showing I had. I still haven't decided after 20 years. Only because it was just so awkward. It was so weird. But I remember calling the agent with feedback, and I said to the agent, I said, you have no idea what I just saw. And you're probably not even going to believe me, but that's okay because I saw it and
Right?
I actually have witnesses. Well, wouldn't you know, my buyer actually purchased that condo.
Oh my God, that's a
They
riot.
actually did, yeah. And the transaction was just as much of a you know what as it could have been. It was a cluster from beginning to end. It was a complete cluster. Yeah, true story.
Yep.
True story. So, when I walk into homes now, I go, hello, anybody
Always,
home?
always.
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you ring the doorbell and nobody comes, knock, ring the doorbell again. If you open the door, just open it slightly and yell in, hello, because you just never know what you're
You
going to
never
walk
know.
into. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yep.
All right. So leave your business card. Never criticize the property in front of the occupant.
Ever.
A very big no-no. I mean, this is common sense. You don't walk into someone's home and then insult them in front of them, but there's agents that will do that. There's buyers that, oh, look at that's hideous. No, don't say that. So you've got to coach your clients and let them know sometimes what's inappropriate and what is appropriate. We shouldn't
Plus,
have to do this.
agents are not like I hear so many times, like agents will be like, oh, that's a problem. That's mold, or that's this. You don't do that.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. Aren't you glad that you're hearing all of these little courtesies that you would just never would have thought of?
Right.
Um, Inform the occupant that you're leaving after the showings. If the occupant's there, naturally you want to say goodbye. Thank you so much. We appreciate you letting us come in tonight. Have a wonderful day, and you see yourself out. Um, Again, if there's a note that says, please call me when you leave, do it. It's just the right thing to do. Okay. All right. So continued is again, making sure that you're knocking and making sure who's home. Are they supposed to be home? Oh, and another thought, if you pull up and an agent is still showing the property, don't just barge in on them.
Right.
Not a good thing. Give them some breathing room. You know, give them a few minutes, see if they leave the property in time for your showing. If they don't, what I would do is I'd tell my buyers to hang tight at the car, and I'd go and I'd knock on the door and I'd just introduce myself to the agent. Just say, hey, I'm Scott Gordon at Keller Williams. I had a 2:00. I don't know if they staggered us or overlapped us or whatever, but how long do you think you'll be? Or can we look at the outside and you guys finish the inside? You just got to kind of feel your way around and see what's more appropriate. All right. But definitely, don't crowd on someone. And your buyer would want the same respect, I would imagine. They're looking at the home. It's not an open house, it's a private showing. Try to give them that privacy. Professional appearance at all times. Imagine that. We should actually look like we are professionals. All right. So this is something not to take lightly. Make sure you're clean and that your car is clean. That you didn't just do any four-wheel driving through the mud. If the occupants are home, make sure that you ask permission before using the restroom. Or I don't know anybody that would use their telephone because we all have our own cell phones today, but definitely the bathroom. Is it okay if I use the restroom? Is it okay if I help myself to some food in the fridge? Be courteous. Don't just steal their steak from last night. All right. As far as when you're communicating with people too, remember that people are people. They don't know all the jargon. They don't know all the things that we know. Um, just be courteous. You know, again, a lot of this is really common sense if you think about it. Be aware of cultural differences. Um, this talks a little bit more about contracts. Be aware and meet all deadlines. Worst thing you can do as an agent, in my opinion, is miss your contract deadlines. There's no excuse for that. All right. A, you could get yourself in a lot of trouble. B, your client could get in a lot of trouble. They could lose money. You're not protecting your client. So you're not giving your client the old car fiduciaries that you've agreed to give them. But also the buyer could lose money. If the buyer loses money, trust me, they're coming after you to reimburse them. And the chances of you continuing to work with that client, very slim, if not non-existent. All right, so we got a question from Ung. What if someone who keeps showing although we notify them? Ung, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you just give me a little more clarification? Ung, are you able to talk? Can't hear him. Okay. Someone keeps.
Sorry, do you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, I have an experience. So I took a private showing from the showing time, and we went there on time. And one party is showing, so I just notified them that our times is up. So we wait outside a little bit, but the party, the agent keeps showing. And when I go and talk to them, what happened is like he argued me that this is their appointment time, and like basically like he is like bluffing. So in that case, how do you handle it?
Okay, so good question. Basically, what you're saying is you went to a showing and the people are still there, and you told him that you had an appointment, and he's saying that they had an appointment, and basically wouldn't stop showing the property.
Correct.
So I guess what I would probably do is I would try to work something out with the other agent. You know, tell you what, you know, you're inside the property, I'll show the exterior. And then, you know, by the time you guys go outside, we'll go inside. Try to make a compromise if you can. If you can't, the only thing you can really do is involve the listing agent and say, you know, hey, we showed up at 2:00. You know, this guy's telling me that he had a 2:00. Did you double book us? Or is this guy not supposed to be here? And then let the listing agent, you know, kind of take care of it. But if you can, try to deal with it on your own, try to come up with a reasonable compromise. And if that doesn't work out, you have to call the listing agent and get them involved, unfortunately.
You know,
Okay.
also if
Thank you.
you're on a schedule and you need to get in there and you're double booked and the other agent's being a jerk, you know, I would just say, you know, well, we have a confirmed time. We'll give you a few minutes and then we're gonna, you know, we have to come in. We're on a schedule. I would make sure that I got in and if they
Oh
want to
yes,
be there,
actually that what I did.
yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to be a little more forceful, like Joyce, you know, go in there with the dukes up.
Right?
You know, don't make me wrestle you because I will.
Yeah. Oh, no, you
Right?
didn't.
Actually, I'm quite flexible and I'm very cooperative, but look, I'm a little bit pissed off. I was pissed off because like a listing agent is kind of like, you know, bluffing and like this is their booking times, and I show my showing time proof, but he cannot show me. So that's why like, at the point I'm a little bit pissed off. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. There's all kinds of tricks out there you're going to encounter, and you'll probably just keep shaking your head or banging against the wall eventually. But yeah, I've had people like show a property and then the buyer likes it so much that they steal the key out of the lockbox. Yep. And then why can I not show it? Well, because there is no key in the lockbox. And then I call the listing agent. Hey, just thought I'd let you know there is no key. I got in the lockbox, but you got nothing there. Oh, well, the other agent, so usually they'll track it. That's one of the nice things about having that showing time is that, you can see who was in there previously. And but that's another little trick that you might encounter. It's a slimy thing to do. And, unfortunately, not everybody plays nicely in the sandbox like this should. So, but what are you going to do? You're going to be professional and you're going to go about it the right way because you're a bigger and better person than they are. So good for you for standing up for yourself and your clients. Promise only what you can deliver and then keep your promises. Again, common sense. Identify your realtor and your status in contact with the public. This is important, I think, if you think about social media. We all go on social media all day. We comment and we forget that sometimes we're commenting as a professional, but others don't know who we are. Others don't know that we're a licensed real estate agent. And if we're giving advice, it's not just another Joe Schmo. We're actually a licensee. We have more education and knowledge, and we're experts in the industry. So you should always identify yourself, especially when you're dealing with other people, whether it be in public arenas or social media, whatever the case is. Always make sure people know who you are. And I love the last one. Don't tell people what you think, tell them what you know. This is really important too, because you'll get people who ask you for your advice. My opinion is if they ask for my advice, I give them my advice. Otherwise, I'm just going to make it factual and I'm going to give them the proper knowledge based on my experience and my expertise. I have a client that's looking to buy property, and from the second floor, we could see there was a retention area that had water in it. Well, the agent didn't make any mention online what that was. Was it a brook? Was it a stream? Was it an easement? Was it a drainage? What was it? So I said to the buyer, they said, well, what do you think about the house? I said, well, we want to know a couple of things. Is that standing water? It hasn't rained in a couple of days. What's going on? Is that something we should be concerned about? It's your due diligence. It's you advising your client what they should do to protect themselves. So really, that's what that comes down to. All right. Questions, thoughts, comments?
Yeah, I have a question, Scott.
Yeah.
If you're showing a property to a buyer and there's obvious problems,
Mhm.
Say you see a spot on the ceiling or something. You said earlier that you shouldn't say negative things about the property. But do you point that out, or?
What I'm referring to, Teresa, is if you're in front of the homeowner.
Oh, okay.
If you're in front of the homeowner or the occupants, you don't want to say negative things that would make them feel bad. Think them yourself, and then let's talk about it outside.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? But if I'm just showing you a property and it's just you and I, absolutely, I'm pointing out whatever I think is wrong, or positive features, negative features, things to be concerned about. Yes, by all means.
But only things like don't
Yeah.
start talking about stuff an inspector would like, what I'm
Right.
saying? If you see spots that look like previous water damage, say, oh yeah, well, we'll find out if those are active or if the culprit's been fixed. Things like that, fine.
Right. You got to stick to your lane, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And as you get more experience too, you're going to learn things, and you'll say, you know what? I can look at a roof today. I'm not a roofer, but I'm driving down the street and I'm like, oh, that guy needs a new roof. Oh,
Yeah.
that guy needs a new roof.
Me too.
Again, I'm not a roofer, but I just looked at so damn many of them, and eventually you'll see enough inspectors say, that's not a good roof. Or you can see there's 2 layers, and they'll show you. Well, now you have some knowledge, and now you can share that knowledge with your clients, or somebody will show you what knob and tube wiring looks like. unless someone shows you that knows what they're doing, you're not gonna know. I mean, you can Google it, but that's not the same, you know, but staying in your lane is talking about what you know to be factual. Don't just be like, oh, well, it could be this, or it could be that, or it could be this. Don't scare someone either, but don't make light of something when it may not be a light issue, you know? I know I kind of went on a little bit more than you probably asked for, Teresa, but
No, it's good though.
yeah, all right. Let me see. Never allow buyers in the property unaccompanied. When you're showing the property, keep all members of the group together. This is important, especially because you got the little gremlins. They love to just disperse. It's almost like fireworks. You open up the door and they're gone. Well, you don't know what the kid's doing, where they're going, what they're touching, what they put in their pockets.
Right.
You don't know any of that. But we're responsible for the property as we're showing it. So remind people before they go in, we all have to stay together. And if Susie's kid likes to touch things, you might want to say to Susie, I'm sorry, Susie, you're going to have to hold your child's hand, or you're going to have to pick them up and hold them. Or maybe they just can't come inside because I'm responsible for everything in this house. All right. So sometimes you're going to have those.
Don't be like
Yeah.
hesitant. If that happens during the showing, tell mom, you're gonna have to
Yeah.
pick her up.
Yeah. You just, you know, sometimes the kids go in and they play with the other kids' toys, you know, and while there's no harm in doing that, it's not really the polite thing to do. All right?
Especially with COVID now. you
Especially
know
with
what I mean?
COVID. Yeah,
Yeah.
people shouldn't be touching anything, but
Right.
you know, sometimes you have to have those awkward conversations with somebody who you think you shouldn't have to have. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah, I
Like,
wouldn't think
who
I would
lets their
need.
kids jump up and down on the furniture?
Yeah, yeah. Or I don't know, there's
But
a,
they do. And if
yeah,
they
I
do,
feel
you
like,
just have to say, you just have to be mom, dad, somebody has to come get this child.
I feel like HGTV doesn't really help either. I've seen some of the most bizarre things happen when they are showing properties sometimes.
yeah,
People laying in people's beds and
Be very careful too. Today, you've got cameras everywhere. And yes,
Yeah.
they're supposed to disclose it in MLS, but some don't, maybe because they
Yep.
don't know. But eyes are usually always on you.
yeah. Another thought too is if you're ever given a lockbox combo or showing instructions, don't just assume because you have those instructions that you can just use them at your whim. Anytime you're going to go into a property, you need to get the seller and the listing agent's consent.
Right.
You know, I remember having an agent one time, he just went over whenever he felt like it. And I had no knowledge, you know, I get a phone call from the neighbor. Oh, you know, this car's been over there for 3 hours. Do you know what's going on? No, we don't have any showings. The house is under contract. So then you know, later I find out that the buyer agent was there because they wanted to bring a contractor in. Fine, tell me, let me get the seller's consent. If I don't get consent, you're not going in. This is common courtesy. Again, we shouldn't have to tell people this, but some people you do. Same thing, like if you got pets, don't let people bring pets into other people's houses. People are allergic to, you know, pet hair, dander. You just, you know, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to keep your pet outside. Obviously, if you have a seeing eye dog, well, that's a little different. You know, we're gonna have to take a little bit more precaution. But I would probably make the, you know, the seller aware that, you know, the buyer has a seeing eye dog, so we need to bring a pet into your home. You know, make sure that there is no allergy or anything that's gonna, you know, affect someone's health conditions. Use the sidewalks. Yeah, don't just like cut over someone's well manicured landscape. You know, the sidewalks are there for a reason, you know, just be courteous. Again, a lot of this makes sense. Leave the house as you found it. You know, if you've got bad weather, take your shoes off at the front door. No one wants to clean up after you. All right. And then respect the seller's instructions. If they're going to videotape you, then we are supposed to make our clients aware of that. on the listing agreement now, there is actually a section that the seller has to complete that says whether they have video or audio components and whether they're going to be in use. For Massachusetts, those of you who don't know that, you can actually video without consent, but you cannot audio without written consent. So what you have to do, if you know someone's going to be video and audioing your showing, you have to get the buyer's written consent to that. All right, don't bring them in the house without their written consent. Joyce, have you ever had anything like that come up?
I just did it yesterday and I didn't know I had to get their consent.
If it's audio, video, you
I
don't
guess
need
I
consent.
didn't know.
Yeah.
I could tell there was a camera though.
And was it on?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Would I be able
Well,
to know?
What's that?
Should I be able to know, like a red light or
No,
something?
no, I mean, you know, some cameras could be red light, green light. It's hard to know. I mean, ideally, the listing agent would make you aware of that in the MLS. If they say that there is video and audio recordings for the showings, then written consent needs to be obtained, otherwise it's illegal.
So I walk in and I see it. And I didn't, all I said was, you know, I just said, we're on camera.
Was there
Yeah.
any notice? Was there any notice in the MLS listing?
No,
No. So I guess in that situation, what I would do is I would say, just an FYI, you know, I see that there are video cameras in the property. I don't know if they are recording or not. If we're gonna have audio recording, we're supposed to get written consent. Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable? Do you still want to see the property? If they say yes, then I just quickly jot something down that just says buyers aware that, you know, the seller has recording devices and they give permission for video and audio recordings. If
Okay.
not, then you can't take them through. Well, the violation would really be on the seller side, but it could also be transferred to you as the buyer agent, because knowing that audio requires written consent, if you allow them to go into the property without actually giving written consent, you could be liable too.
yeah.
So,
I guess I didn't even know if it was audio. I just,
yeah, I mean, just keep it in mind. You
no,
know,
it's good. I
things-
learned something, see?
Yeah, hey, every day we learn something, right?
Right.
If you see somebody on the property that you don't think should be there, report it. You see something, you say something. Vandalism, or you walk in and something's broken, call the listing agent. Hey, I don't know if you knew this or not, but the window's broken. I just want you to know we noticed it. Because the last thing you want is them to say, well, you were the last one at the house and now you're responsible. All right. All right. Anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay. Respect for the peers. Identify yourself. Again, respond to calls, faxes, emails. If there's inaccurate information in the MLS, give someone a professional courtesy. Hey, Teresa, just thought I'd let you know your listing says this and it's actually not that. A lot of people make that mistake. They'll say it's got gas for heating and it's oil, you know, or actually went into a property. This is a little bit different, but again, I've been in the business for 27 years, so I have a little bit of good knowledge. And we happen to notice in the attic, there was all this black all over the sheathing up in the attic. Well, you don't have to be a genius to know that that's probably mold. Am I a mold inspector? Nope. Did I say that? Absolutely, because you got to cover your butt. Now, I'm not a mold guy, but I can tell you, you probably should get that looked at. My buyer was not interested. They just didn't like the house. But I called the listing agent and gave him a courtesy. Just thought you'd like to know. There's nothing up in the attic. Your sellers clearly don't use it, so they probably don't even know about it.
Right.
The agent was upset. Who do you think you are? I'm just another realtor, dude. I'm just trying to help you out. Because if you don't get any offers, that might be a reason.
Or when you
if
get an offer, it's
or
gonna
when you get
show
an
up.
offer, exactly. Your deal might blow up because you got a serious mold issue and you wanted to put your head in the hole. So sometimes giving somebody notice about a mistake doesn't always get received well, but that's okay. You know, you did your job.
Right.
Or somebody makes a disclosure or doesn't make a disclosure. That's another thing. You know, I had an agent that I did my due diligence. I said to them, what can you tell me about the easement in the backyard? She said, what easement? Oh, you mean the one that's on record? She didn't do her due diligence. She didn't even know there was an easement. You know, so again, we just try to help each other out. If you see something in someone's comments, maybe they've written something that might be a violation of fair housing. Well, don't just overlook it and say, what an idiot. Call them and say, hey, I don't know if you thought about this, but that might not be a word you want to use, you know, just trying to be a nice guy. All right, let me see. Avoid inappropriate or use of endearments. You don't want to be, you know, saying sweetheart or darling, or, you know, be careful with what you say. You know, be courteous to your customers as well as your fellow realtors. Return keys promptly. I mean, back in the day, it was very common where you'd have to go to a real estate office, pick up a key to the house, then go show the property and then bring the key back. I mean, thank God for lock boxes, but there still are some agents and sellers that still want that type of treatment. If you come across that rare occasion where you have to go pick up a key, yeah, bring the key back. You know, don't make it unavailable for other agents to see the property. Don't lose the keys. Those are also another good tip. And remember, your reputation's a big thing. You know, you work hard to build your business. You can ruin your business overnight just by simply being disrespectful or having a bad reputation or treating somebody unfairly. You know, so protect and preserve your reputation, because oftentimes you only get one time to make your first impression. So just keep those things in mind. All right, I know we're coming close to our ending. We got about another 20 minutes. So I want to talk about a couple things that are relative to code of ethics. As some of you may be aware, back in 2020, I think it was November or December, National Association of Realtors actually introduced a new standard of practice, which is 10-5. So it's Article 10, Standard 10-5. And what it says is realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. In other words, don't be an idiot. Make sure that when you are talking to people, whether it be online or in person, think about what you say before you say it. All right. The National Association of Realtors and the Mass Association, as well as all of our local associations, are all on board that realtors should never engage in this type of harassment or behavior. When you become a realtor and you join this organization, you become a member of a very elite group, and you have to act a very specific way. So even though you might be an individual and you have your own personal speech, and you may feel that you want to say what you say because you have the freedom of speech, when you become a realtor, you give that up. Believe it or not, you give up the freedom of speech because what you say can impact our business and the people that we work with. You know, so personally, I was thrilled to see this become part of the code of ethics. I just wanted to make you aware of it if you were not already. All right, so this is a quick scenario that I think was worthy of talking about too. Real estate commissions, are they negotiable? We talked a little bit about this earlier. If I'm not happy with Joyce's offering in the MLS, I can call her and try to sweet talk her all day, and she may not budge. All right, that's okay. That's Joyce's prerogative. Here's what's interesting. you can write into your offer, subject to seller paying buyer broker commission at X%. So for the longest time, people thought you could not use the offer to renegotiate your terms of commission. And that is true, but qualify it by saying that you cannot renegotiate your terms of commission with the listing broker. I can't make the offer subject to Joyce paying me more money. Okay, but the buyer can instruct me to make the offer subject to the seller paying their broker X%. Because when you think about it, the offer, the parties to the offer are the buyer and seller, not the agents. We're not party to it. We can't breach the offer. Only the buyer and seller can. So the buyer, let's say if Joyce is only offering 2%, for example, and my success fee on my contract says 2.5%, and the buyer knows they're going to have to pay the difference, and they don't want to, that's fine. They can instruct me to write that as a condition in the offer. But again, to be very clear, the condition needs to be that the seller agrees to pay the buyer agent X% commission. Cannot make the contract subject to the listing agent agreeing to pay X% commission. That's a huge difference, okay? Obviously, my three options here: one, I can call Joyce and try to negotiate. Two, if I have a exclusive buyer agent agreement, that's wonderful. The buyer's already has the proper expectations. They know that if I can't get what the minimum success fee is, they're going to have to make up that difference. And then again, the third option, you can write it in, but it has to be done very specifically. Otherwise, it would be a violation of the Code of Ethics. All right. Speaking of Code of Ethics, I thought we would end out by me showing you these were the Code of Ethics that were adopted in 1913. These are the original Code of Ethics. Today, we have 8 pages of Code of Ethics and various standards. So it's interesting, you know, if you've ever had an interest in Code of Ethics and you ever want to read up on it, feel free to do so. You know, I put it in here just for your information, but obviously the way it was written was females were not selling real estate in 1913, because everything in here refers to the male gender, and he or his, there's no references whatsoever to females. And the wording is a bit historic, but it's interesting anyway. All right, so here we are done with our presentation. What do you guys think? Do you have any questions about anything? Any thoughts? Any experiences that you wish to share? Anything? Wow, I did that good of a job? Come on.
You did though, but I have a question. I don't
Yeah.
know if it will apply, maybe. But what is the protocol, Scott? I'm not licensed in New Hampshire yet. And my client, of course, wants to look both in Mass and New Hampshire.
Mhm.
What do you recommend?
So unfortunately, if you're not licensed in New Hampshire, the only thing you can do is refer that business to another agent in the office that is licensed in New Hampshire.
Even if they want to go just to open houses and haven't made up their mind yet what they want to do?
You could have somebody kind of in the wings, you know, find out who else is in the office that has their New Hampshire license, and just say to them, look, they're looking at both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Obviously, you've got them covered on the Massachusetts side, but if they choose to cross the border, you know, is that something that they'd be willing to work with you on? And you know, make that a referral arrangement with them, and I would connect the buyer to that agent if they have questions about a specific property.
Because
But
they
if they're
just sprung that on me, like
if they're gonna
literally.
go to open houses, The only trouble is if the agent there says who you're working with and they give them your card and you're not licensed in New Hampshire.
And I shouldn't go there with them, right?
No, because anything you do would be not correct. You can't do anything.
Right.
So I would team up with that other agent now, maybe get a stack of their business cards and give it to the buyer and just say, if you're gonna go to any open, excuse me, if you're gonna go to any open houses in New Hampshire, hand out this card
Okay.
so that they know who would be their representative in that state. But I'm sure you could come up with an arrangement with the agent that says, look, obviously I don't want you to be pushing them away from me, trying to persuade them to go to New Hampshire, but I just want you to be there for me should they need it. You've got to kind of work out that arrangement with the other agent. So, but great question. Let me see if I got anything else in the chat box. Just Ong saying thank you. You're welcome. Shaylin, Teresa, you guys got any questions? Are you good? No?
I'm good. Thank you so much. This was so helpful.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I will say goodbye. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. And I'll see you same bat time, same bat channel next week.
Thanks, Scott.
Scott.
All right. Take care.
Thanks, God.
Bye.